Hello, everyone. This is Coach Matt for the Seattle Chess School. We've got the 10th edition of the Thursday night tournament going on right now. First game we're looking at is Smatov versus Odeby. I'll later on update what happened on the 8th and 9th editions. There was only one game played a piece, so there wasn't too much to go over there. So here we've got a extremely classical French with knight to d7 with the idea of knight gf6. So here, if white captures, we can capture back with the knight. One of the most basic of all French defense, especially the ones, the positions involving exchanging. This is like a very basic setup here. In some cases, black can capture and replace it with the knight on f6 and then decide what to do with the bishops. In these positions, black, generally speaking, has the most difficulty developing the light bishop. If he can engineer b6 and bishop b7, that would be ideal. Not always easy to achieve. Knight f6, bishop d3, b6 looks interesting, but then bishop d3 might be a little bit of an annoyance. But we'll see how this goes. So obviously the bishop needs to be saved. White has a tactical way to do it, but he would have to give up the bishop pair in any case. Bishop g5, bishop to e7, and something has to get traded. Well, maybe not. Bishop g5, bishop e7, then bishop d3? Maybe. That might be an interesting way to put pressure on him. We shall see. All right, well, while Smatov is giving this a think, let's see. No, there doesn't appear to be any other games going on. So we'll stick to this one. Queen to e2. So this trade, generally speaking, should favor black. There's really no reason not to save the bishop. The bishop is a very powerful piece, guarding lots of squares. Being able to trade for this is a huge concession. This means that this bishop will have, again, some difficulty developing. b6 and bishop b7 is not easy, but the bishop pair is a long-term advantage. So, black can work towards it. And at the same time, once this bishop gets into the game, there'll be no opponent for him. And he can just rule the light squares. At the moment, the queen is ruling the light squares and ruling the center. Not clear if white can make something of this. Probably something like bishop to e7 is simple and good. Bishop e7, arrange for castle. Maybe untangle on the queen side. Yeah, this is a good move. Something like rook b8, followed by pushing the b pawn, followed by bishop to b7, and then relocate the b8 rook somewhere later on. That takes a few moves, but it might be a good way to untangle. Ideally, he would like to play bishop d7 to c6 and then get to the d5 square as quick as possible, or at least influence the square. However, these always hang the b pawn. So maybe rook b8 followed by bishop d7 followed by c6 is a plan. In the meantime, white's got reasonable development, probably misses his light square bishop already. This having it here would be really excellent for the attack. So here he has to engineer some sort of space gaining plan in a different way. Possibly knight e5, maybe something like c4. Bishop, okay, so this move. Not really threatening anything at the moment. So rook b8. Something like f5 is probably, very disgusting. Weakening the e pawn, weakening e5. Although it does look like that black could actually go for a kingside pawn storm here. all the squares are guarded, so I suppose he could do this, but I mean, yeah, that's not really Otoby's style either, and I can't say that I blame him. I mean, something like that looks really weak. So something like c6, yeah, see, now I was just going to say c6 looks also passive, because now getting this bishop into the game is even going to be a bigger chore. Although if the bishop could ever emerge out of this prison that he's in, all these pawns imprison him. Even the f pawn does. I mean, he could try, you know, like bishop d7 to e8, but even f7 imprisons the bishop. So all these all these pawns are holding the bishop in, and it's going to take a while for him to get involved in the game. Rook d1. So because of that, maybe it's actually a good idea to abandon the middle game and just offer a queen trade, especially after rook a d1. The rook on a1 does guard the a2 pawn. So if the rook ever gets centralized, c1, e1, d1, a2 might need some covering. And here I think black might be able to take advantage of this. Also, if white takes, we could take with the e pawn, and all that I said about the bishop before is not true anymore, and the bishop is resurrected. And probably has just, you know, maybe a slightly better position with the pair of bishops. I would seriously consider this move. So he's made of sterner stuff and decides to keep the queens on. Fine. And make a threat. Okay. Seems reasonable so far. Okay, guarding the pawn, but now all the dark squares are weak. I wonder if that means anything. Bishop is aimed this way. Queen's over here. Can try to go for a can opener on the queen's side. a5, a4. Wow, he actually did go for an f5. I would have thought that it was yeah, I mean, okay, so giving up weaknesses for the thrill of attacking the queen. All right, so I suppose if Smadov moves the wrong piece or doesn't notice that his queen's being attacked, I would suppose that f5 would be considered a brilliant move. One of the tough parts about attacking the queen with one piece is that the queen has more than likely multiple ways to run away. So you have to make sure that she doesn't run to somewhere better. So now he's got this clear plan of knight to e5 or bishop to e5 or rook to e1 and over attack e5. I don't know if this would be considered over protection, but it'd be over attacking. And then we could just dominate e5. Pretty clear plan. All these pawns can be defended. We can just play a4, defend everything. And this bishop is still not bad. Okay, so now, however, he does have a way out. Takes a while. If he could get there and exchange the bishop off for the, oh my goodness. So he's offering a Trinquaid here, but this is going to damage the pawns permanently. Whew, I don't know about that. I'd be awfully tempted to trade this. Take, and c6 is weak. It's all weak. e5. Yeah, white would have a dream position there. Yeah, why not? Why not? All right, so here we have this. You can also activate pieces. Could also, yeah, just knight e5. Just give me the pawn. Now, of course, black maybe we'll try to liquidate here, but knight c6 might be an interesting retort. So c5, knight c6. Can't go here. And if defending, that might actually end up winning a pawn for white once the bishop gets exchanged off. You know, like rook f7, knight takes, rook takes, pawn takes. Winning a pawn, setting up bishop d6. That's an opposite color bishop endgame, but white's got He's got a couple passed pawns over here, and a lot of prospects. So now this bishop just becomes a pawn with a hat. All right, so probably don't want to attack too quickly. There's no reason to just attack the rook. Again, that would be like the same thing as what f5 was all about. Attack the queen. You know, like knight to here is attack the rook, but the rook can just go somewhere. So probably he probably wants to use the time here to build up his position. Maybe something like rook d3. Make the rook a little bit more flexible. Maybe give the option of rook c3 and targeting c6, maybe swing the rook over and maybe try to do something on the king side. Also, rook e1 with a similar idea and like lift the e rook rather than the d rook. Can build that up. Maybe another plan would be to play here c4. Actually, black probably is threatening c5 here. Or is he? c5, dc, bishop c5, knight d7. So he does centralize. Okay, so this masks an attack on the e6 square. So moving the knight would attack the pawn. Actually, that was also another interesting move, knight d3. Retreating knight move and keeping an eye on the outpost of e5, but restraining c5. So that might have been interesting. All right, so rook fe1, give me the rook, okay? So probably here just rook e3 with similar ideas. Rook here also prepares c3 if needed. Probably don't want to do anything passive with the rook, not a rook f1. Even rook e2 is a little too passive. Doesn't really do much. Yeah. E3, it does more. You can swing it right. You can protect left. Does two things. This only does one thing. So, all right. Fairly even game, though. Not bad. Let's see, anybody else? No, nobody else is playing. Rook a d8. Okay, slight pressure here. Also blocks out knight d7. Knight d3, retreating knight moves that attacks something looks really nice. Although d4 hangs in that line. Yeah, it'd have been if rook e3, it'd have been very nice to play c3 here and add extra protection to this one. That would be nice. All right, so it looks like white has to be careful here a little bit. That's a careful move. So this attacks the pawn in a different way. It keeps a hold of this. Also prepares bishop to e5, holding on to this a little bit better. Good. Okay. You know, from that point of view, I like this move. Okay. So attacking. Well, the bishop is sort of stranded here. So if bishop to e5, that would again threaten rook to d3. Once again, getting a rook to the third rank. Or even rook e3. Probably rook d3 is better since this rook is undefended. Going up to here would actually have some sort of defense, so there's no more tactics based on this. Actually, bishop to e5, c5. That doesn't look so wonderful. Well, let's see. Bishop to e5, c5, 96. Maybe. Maybe. Could get tricky. This might be the key moment of the game. Okay, so he decides to snap here. All right. So they exchange off. Yeah, probably white has the edge. White's pieces are better developed. So this threatens check. Got to watch out here. Tactic time. Maybe just abandon the D file and go for the E file. Maybe king F1, making it so it's not check. Also, I suppose there's bishop to E3 with the idea that if bishop takes, knight takes, which guards the rook. Here he ignores it altogether, so this should win material here. Yeah, and he finds it. He finds it. Okay, so this is winning exchange. Oh, wait a minute. Wait a minute. This is hanging too. Okay, maybe this wasn't so brilliant. Yeah, I guess this bad bishop is still bad after all these years. So now it's just two pieces versus the rook. I guess it's still an exciting battle here. So rook takes bishop. Okay, so reasonable calculation here. So can the two rooks coordinate themselves, or can these guys coordinate? Who's first? These guys look like they're already pretty good. Like bishop to e5 might be a threat. Rook takes everything over here is a threat. So probably trying to go in for some sort of 8th rank attack. Bishop e5 is looking pretty scary. That doubles up on g7. I don't see why not. Huh. Oh, wait a minute. That allows rook d2, though. Maybe that doesn't matter. Kind of a weird move. It attacks the rook. I guess it blocks out this rook. And it also attacks f5. So that's not the first move I would think of, but maybe this is interesting. We've got a multi-purpose move. Like I said, the only drawback is that it does allow black to get the 7th rank here. Now, king f3 is probably logical and good. All right, so everything is defended. So I guess this will give white time to start eating pawns. If need be, black actually really can increase the pressure here. It is interesting, though, that white really isn't threatening to take on f5 when c2 is hanging. And that might give black some counterplay. What's this? Threatening rook e4. Oh, wow. So he does have time now to snap this. Wow. Okay. Good calculation by Smatov there. Ooh, 96. I think he just walked into tactic time here. Oh, even G7 was hanging. Wow. Okay. Wow. Yeah, this is a pretty sizable attack here for Smetov. So king f8, bishop d6 is crushing. Here, I just take more stuff. Maybe. Maybe you can back up this way. Well, wait a minute. Your rook is hanging, Smetov. Your rook hangs. How can you do this? He just takes. Oh, well, okay. I guess he was taking e4. All right. So actually, here you could take e8, which protects g7. Oh, he missed it. Oh, he had another tactic. Okay, so 2 pieces versus rook. Still probably an advantage for white here, obviously, with the 2 pieces. This is crushing. Bishop. Oh, he missed it. Bishop to e5 check was winning the exchange with knight h6 check. He missed that. Always look at your checks, captures, and threats. Now this bishop is guarding. Oh, see, now he did it, but that bishop was guarding d2. So now again, black will have some counterplay. So probably has to guard this somehow. Bishop c3. Yeah, this c5. And he's c5 knight f3. So he can actually guard d2 so that the black rook will have nothing to attack. There. King f5 looks reasonable. Winning another pawn, but allowing this. Yep. And there's counterplay. There's the counterplay. So, all right. So he's starting to give him stuff with check. I don't like that. Yeah. Oh, now the king is decentralized. Also a big no-no in endgames. If you could keep your king in the middle, absolutely do that. Never put your king on the rim if there's no reason to. Yeah, now this pawn's dropping. This is serious counterplay now. It's back in the game. Go pawn, go. This is check though. He is guarding all these squares though. So maybe white is no, this is allowing the king to get in. Uh-huh. This piece is more coordinated. If rook b7, I think knight c8 is a good move. Yeah, c6. Uh-oh, c6, c7, c8. c6, c7, c8. Uh-oh, there he goes. Wow. And he's got this pawn, which should be winning easily. Wow, Smetov has a winning endgame here. All he has to do is round him up. Both the rook pawns. And that should be fairly easy. Very easy. Very impressive play there by Smetov. Actually, it was a good fight all around. Both sides had their chances. Queen that thing. Yep. Take back. Right. Blockade. Or you can just go get him. Just go get him with your king. What is he going to do? Oh, he's going to try to queen him. Okay. All right. Yeah, the bishop can just monitor him and just go over here and collect the H pawn. Very good. And just take him. Yeah. All right. Very simple. Very simple. Take. So Odabe's going to try the one last hope to try to promote, but go, Harry, go. Go, go, go. Not necessary. You don't have to do that. Just go. Funny. It's not trying to promote here. There you go. Yeah, promote. Promote. Go, go, go. Okay, move your bishop anywhere. Well, here, let's go to F6. Best move. Maybe one of these. Something far away. There you go. There you go. Simple technique. Take. There you go. Then promote. Promote, promote. And now we got king and queen versus king. Don't use the knight. The knight just, even if you take your knight and put it on way far away, or even sacrifice the knight, that's better. You just checkmate with these two pieces. You don't need the knight. Good. He's using, yep. Making the jail smaller. King in, that's fine. Well, you should have gone there beforehand. King here, simple and good. Good. Now you can go electric fence. Here is quickest. That's mate in 2. This is the electric fence. Well, you didn't quite make the electric fence. Smatov is rated 1193, but I'm pretty certain he knows how to do this. Although his last move kind of showed that maybe he forgot. Who knows? Okay, this is electric fence and is by far the best move. Uh-oh. He's not finding it instantly. Anybody that has played this position should be able to play this position. There you go. So he did find the move, but he had to think about it. That's a bad sign. That should be an automatic move. King C3. That should be part of a chess player's everyday being. This should be this whole technique should be imprinted on everyone's brain. There you go. He did do it though. Excellent. Good. Very excellent. Oh, we got 4 players now. All right. We've got Slow Right and Siberian Comfort. This is the first go around for Siberian Comfort, so we'll see how they play. All right, well, I guess we'll pause here until game starts. All right, let's start round 2 here. Got Odeby versus Siberian Comfort. By the way, this is a 10+5 tournament. So plenty of time to think for every player. Maybe we'll keep an eye on the slow board between Slow Right and Smatov at the same time. That looks like a Austrian attack Pirz. If that game starts to heat up, we'll make that the big board. So here we have a Philidor defense by Black, and White is playing a Ponziani of some kind, or possibly a Danish Gambit. Depends on if something gets sacrificed. Oh, but turns into a Ruy Lopez. Okay, so this is Ruy Lopez Steinitz defense. Now in this position, C3 isn't necessarily the best move. In fact, probably D4 would have been better, but this just gets into a normal. All right. So this is more like mainline Ruy Lopez. Knight F6. You could probably play D3 there. I like Queen E2. We shall see. Hopefully Black will play Knight F6 in this position. I'll be very curious to see how Odeby guards the E-pawn. Okay, so this is very classic. Knight f6, I really do like queen e2. But that's another tale for another day. All right, bishop to e2. Oh, the old school way of handling the Austrian attack. Nowadays, they put the bishop on d3. Pawn e5 is also a playable attack in that position. Okay, so here it is, big moment. How do you guard the pawn? Pawn d3. No, he doesn't guard the pawn. Oh, so the trick here is that if knight takes e4, bishop to d5. Boom, boom, and this wins a piece. So that's a really nice trick. So here he's reserving the right to defend the pawn with the rook, if he so. Now that might allow knight to g5. With a very quick, a fried liver style attack on f7. Yeah, bishop to e7. I think if you're not going to take the pawn, bishop or no. I mean, if you're not, if you're not going to fall for the trap, then bishop to e7 was better because then you can meet this. You can now meet knight g5 with castles. Here you cannot castle, so there's a very serious attack here on f7. So and Odeby finds it. Knight g5. That looks very hard to meet. And Smadov goes for the c5 variation of the Austrian. There's a few different moves there. c5 looks the most interesting. Queen to e7. So this just gives up f7. So you could take it with the knight. You could take it with the bishop. What way is better? He takes with bishop. Okay. So after the king moves, h6 suddenly becomes a tactical threat. So retreating the bishop right away sets up, defends the bishop and also threatens knight f7 and gives white some, he finds that too. Extremely good. So this means that he has time to play d3 and guard the pawn just in case if he needs to retreat the knight, which would be very important, especially if he wants to keep this pawn. If he doesn't, then I suppose he has some possibility of playing d4 here and just try to bust open the center and try to take advantage of the fact that the king is on d8. So he's got a couple of options here. We'll see how that goes. Okay, so still in the opening phases of the Pirc defense there. He did. Knight f7, knight f7. What? How did was that? What? Oh, it was knight a5. Knight a5, yeah, allows knight f7. So yeah, and then this loses a rook and capture. You could capture that with the pawn or queen probably. Yep, take with the queen. Still the same problem. Knight takes e4, queen d5. And we got a forky worky here. So this pawn is still defended after all these moves by nothing. But in fact, it is defended. Once d3 is played, this is, I mean, it's already game over, but d3 is going to cement the victory here. If bishop to g7, I suppose you can desperado the knight on g6. So yeah, probably just queen c2. Just guard and then develop. Well, he still gives this away. Yep, and this time it was wanted. So hopefully white won't pay for the fact that his first move got taken. I like saving the integrity of the first move. If you're going to play e4, you might as well guard the pawn in many cases. I mean, you put the pawn on there on your first move for a reason. It guards some really important squares. If you let your opponent capture it at some point, certain disadvantages could happen. I really believe in protecting your first move for as long as possible, and then only give up your first move for something if it's really good, or if you have to advance it because it's a really good move. But yeah, that pawn on e4 is important. All right, but now it is gone, so we have to keep playing. But these pieces can now jump out very quickly. Queen can come out to f3. White's still +5. Looking pretty good. Knight c6. So castles, knight c6, d5, knight d8. Interesting way to play the Pirates there. So encouraging d5 did help out the g7 bishop. It did lose a couple of tempi though. Maybe white could play e5 and go for a central attack here on the small board. E5 looks dangerous. Possibly even dangerous right now. E5, D, E, F, E, knight G4, bishop F4. I don't know. Starting to look creaky. Maybe you could prepare it. Maybe. Okay, so knight C5 happened. And then D4, opening things up in the center. Remember, black cannot try to bail out with castle's queenside. The king has already moved twice. So, okay, so now going for gambit play here, just to open up the files. Interesting concept. Here, this. Does black get greedy and start chomping more pawns, trying to catch up on the scoreboard? Maybe black tries to collect the knight. Okay, does try to collect the knight. Now let's see. Pawn takes is an interesting tempo move, especially since the bishop will now be under defended. So maybe this isn't. I don't know. You're collecting the h8 knight, but the pawn on d4 might be more important. Also, after white captures, white will be threatening d. Oh wow. Oh, so doing the same thing but trading queens at the same time. Haha, very clever. And this also guards the knight, X-ray style. Oh, magic. Okay, I like that. I like that. And if queen takes and pawn takes and all these pins and removal of the guard tactics are starting to work here. And also the pin. Okay, yep. And then capture. And then something's happening here. Something's going to fall. You could try knight to d3, but this is check. And then I suppose king d7 happens. So the rook and the bishop will be under attack. So maybe black's got one saving idea here. This was the difference between this and not trading queens. When you didn't trade queens, this kept this square under control. So if you capture like this, black will not have this resource. But when you trade queens, this looks really fancy, but then suddenly black gets a magic move here because d3 is not guarded anymore. And it was found. Very good for Siberian. So check, yeah, and king d7. Excellent. And now there's a fork. It's funny, this knight's still alive. Wonder if that resource could be used. So maybe we could trap the knight, something like rook e3, bishop takes, knight c3, but then bishop h6, and then there's this. So protecting, giving it up, could develop, and then knight d3 again. And then knight f7. And then white emerges a rook ahead there. So that was good combination by O to be there. Yep, knight c3. You can the knight could be moved. And then you just save this knight. Okay, so now you have a choice. You can exchange knights, boom, boom, or you could save your knight and let them save their knight. Your choice. Because you're up +5, I would recommend. So he goes for this. So the normal way to go, of course, kids at home, that when everybody knows that when you get a winning position, you should try to trade down. So just simply capturing the knight and exchanging for this one, traded down. White was still up a whole rook, but because the pieces got traded, it's much easier to win the end game. Every chess player, of course, in winning positions has the option of not trading down. And usually one of the prime reasons for not trading down is because there is a mating attack, some sort of attack on the king. So when that is present, then it's, trading pieces down into an end game isn't really as decisive enough as playing for mate. So that's, I guess that's what they're banking on, is that knight f7 is some sort of mating attack on the king with this extra piece. Here, rook to d1, looks like it allows knight takes b2. Yep, now black's starting to crawl back into the game. Rook e1 maybe, trying to dominate on the e file. C3 hangs too. Uh-oh. So, yeah, maybe there's some sort of combination. Rook e1, bishop c3, rook e7, king c8, rook c8, king b7, knight takes d6. With the idea of c takes d6, rook e7 check, king up the board, and then capture the rook, and then you're up 2 exchanges, something like that. That looks reasonable, I guess. So yeah, rook e1. So that's like basically forced. I mean, this check is rather unpleasant, even at the cost of a piece. So we're going to see this variation, I think. So check him first. Good. This move to try to protect the rook. Oh, actually, it's the only move. So check him again. You could even sacrifice now. Take, and check, and then bring the other rook down. And you get the same position where the king will be distracted away from the rook, and then you capture, and then white will have 2 rooks versus bishop and knight. Instead goes for this attack. Oh, well, maybe this is good too. I didn't see this move. Okay. So yeah, let's see, bishop a5. Does that hold there? Well, bishop a5, 96. Yeah, maybe. So suddenly, yeah, white's now only up a pawn here, but has some I mean, these pieces make a lot of pressure. Up an exchange. All right, let's see what's going in the small board here. Whoa. Wow. Okay, so the action did heat up there. So let's take a look at that game. Let's see how that transpired. Got bishop e2, c5, c5, knight c6. So yeah, this. Okay, so he actually did go for the e5 push right away. Knight to g4, hitting the pawn. Bishop f4, defending. Knight d7 attacking. E6 attacking. Taking, and then knight g5. So just a pawn sacrifice, but suddenly there's a disco on g4 and a fork on e6. So the question is, can both of these things be defended? Black does have a bishop d4 check, which is interesting looking. Let's see. This is being attacked twice, so we would have to do something extra fun here. Yeah, perhaps that's the only move. Perhaps he has to give this a try. Either that or black might be just busted here. This is a nice little attack here by Slow Right. Yeah, the pressure's on. All right, so while the pressure is on, let's go back to the end game here. Oh, the en passant test. Is he going to pass it? Actually, is it? Yeah. So it's the en passant test here. Does White remember en passant, or did White forget it? Let's find out. He did forget it. And he sacks the rook for the bishop to win the rook. Aha. Okay, well, that seems efficient. Now, there is some passed pawns. So, well, passed pawn, I should say. But we're up an entire rook here. So hopefully this is not just going to march down the board and make queens. And hopefully these pawns will not go with them. Check. Okay, so this is under attack. This is under attack. Yeah. So probably here to attack the d pawn. Actually, the knight was attacking the d pawn on c3, so this check is kind of funny. Could have just taken. All right, so grab a pawn. Oh, it gets the knight off the board. Ah, very nice technique. All right, that forces the knight trade one way or the other. King is close. Walk right over, capture. Although king b7 was interesting. So capture, capture, king, king. Simple. Yep, there you go. Take. Get your king involved. You can give up Delroy. That's cool. Just get your king posted up. Bring your rook back over. Bloop, bloop. And just start harvesting. Can't be stopped. Go, king, go. Okay, so he starts chomping over here. You can go king, go next. Oh, but see, now that's what happens. So you didn't. Okay, now that means the pawn can be chomped. But this is kind of one of these good habit forming moves that, you know, like get your king to be as strong as you can be, so that your opponent doesn't have any hope at all. This isn't really hope, but king to d3 took even more hope away. And like I said, it's a good habit forming move. This is not the best that the king could be. King d3 was the best it could have been in that position. So just rook over is fine. Chomp away. Interesting. Not attacking anything. Not just going for check and take. Is that the idea? I suppose. Well, all right. So this is clearly winning for white here. So let's go to the middle game here. See what's going on. So yeah, okay. So take knight to g5, rook f5. So not even bothering with the knight. How fascinating. So taking, not bothering to do anything about this. So winning a tempo here. Queen b6. Take on g4 now. c4 check. Okay, so that check was noticed. He just simply didn't do it with the bishop. King h1. So I guess the sum total of this is that white has appease and the attack. Usually that's a good combination to have. Bishop c7 is interesting. Trying to do a disco on the rook and remove the rook as a guard. Taking that is also logical and good. Here. Wow, slow Riot's running out of time. So that's why, I guess that's what's making this game interesting. Rook B1. Wow. Okay, so concerned about the B2 pawn suddenly. How interesting. I wouldn't have bothered with that. I mean, even if he took that allowed Queen D4 check, which probably allowed a decide. Is this another en passant test? It is. So this, oh, he failed the test. So we had two failures of en passant. Yeah, en passant was on there and actually looked really good. Taking here, actually forked two more guys. Oh wow, okay. So we need some en passant practice out of the crew. Queen takes, that's fine. So still winning. Still winning. Yep, good trade, and then take on E5. Wins more material. C4 is falling. Well, I assume, I mean, meaning like the rook coming over to defend. If the rook does not come over to defend, then you could trade twice here and have a winning end game. This just wins the game. Yep. Whoops. Mate. Yep. Okay. So interesting attack there. Oh, LJJ has joined the fray. 56 minutes left. Wow. So this game's still going on? Oh, we got king and queen technique on this side. King E3. Oh man, he had he had the electric fence one move prior and then decided to relinquish it, which is usually something you don't do at home, kids. You just go king to E3, go king to F3, and then you pie in the face him wherever he happens to be. This is mate. This is mate. Mate and mate. Hey, it was noticed. Okay. All right, so got a three-way tie for first after first couple of games. How nice. All right, so we got Siberian versus Smadov. We got Riot versus LJJ. All right, let's go. Well, LJJ, we haven't seen him today, so let's go with this one. These guys have had a nice couple of battles here. Slow Riot's ahead 2-1 after 3 games. And they've discussed this position pretty much every single time. The knight Orff with bishop to E3, which is LJJ's favorite weapon, the English attack. Yep. Okay. So this is like chapter 3 or 4 of this discussion between these two guys. And both sides going for their favorite battle formations here. White's usually intending F3, Queen D2, and castle with G4. Black is usually intending something like bishop to E7, castle short, and knight with B5 at some point. And then this knight is a little bit flexible. Has 2 places they can go. So the timing of this is interesting because if queen to D2, then this will allow knight to G4. And then black will be harassing the bishop. And if you could trade the knight for the bishop, that's a really good trade for black. So F3 is the normal move. LJJ has been experimenting with A4 in this position just to try to slow down the pawn B5 push. But A4 makes queenside castling a little bit more difficult. Although maybe you could do it in interesting circumstances, but and I think he won a game recently with A4. So it'll be interesting to see if he actually tries, if he repeats that experiment against the Riot. Okay, let's see. So this one looks like a Peertz defense with bishop G5, like some sort of Zamish action. How interesting. All right, we'll keep an eye on that at the same time. White played F4 here. Which is rather aggressive. Also rather weakening too. I wonder if even knight G4 here is a good move. Knight G4, bishop G1, EF. Yeah, maybe F4 was a little too quick. But at least it's going to make it for an exciting fight. Wow, he captures first. I would have bothered the bishop. See where the bishop had in mind. All right, so both sides have their weaknesses, but the board is more open. So this will give rise to some tactical play. That'll be cool. Smatov is breaking in the center here against this early pawn chain that white made here. So the chain got broken up a little bit, and black has some reasonable development. Very interesting game already. Okay, well, with all these pawn weaknesses, that means that there's open files for both sides. Bad pawns usually means good rooks. So kids at home, if you ever get your pawn structure destroyed, you don't have to be sad about it, because now both your rooks will become happy with all your doubled and tripled and quadrupled and isolated pawns. Usually improves your rooks dramatically. So you can take heart in that. So even here, like white's got an isolated pawn, but the D file looks good and the F file looks good. And you have two rooks, you can go to either file. Black, same thing. Black's got an isolated D pawn. C file looks good. E file looked good. So here it instead goes for a trade. So now the isolated pawns get traded. This means that both rooks should be now excellent when you have a whole menu of choices here of where to put the rook. I would expect O-O-O here. Yeah. Although knight G4 is probably worth a fling. No, he doesn't go for that. This wins a tempo. This wins a tempo, but this wins it back. But maybe the rook is better here on E8. So I don't know if you want to chase the rook to a good square. Still, you probably don't want to lose a tempo. So bishop here, rook over, develop the light bishop, maybe to E2. E2 to F3. Centralize the other rook. Maybe a slight advantage here for white. A little bit more space. Nothing too drastic. Black's probably holding his own here. So yeah, I mean this move. I mean, the knight G4. I think might be a little bit of an irritant. So it might be good to just develop a piece to guard a threat. And then if you could post up the bishop on F3, then all these knight invasions can be guarded. Yeah, so he does the same thing, but he does it without development. So this this forcibly guards the G4 square, but it does not develop a piece. And, so the ancient laws of chess of, developing as quick as possible, that's kind of the reason for it. If you can, so the idea is if you can actually develop a piece and guard something at the same time, that should be preferred to pawn moves. The connection of the rooks one move earlier can be important. So yeah, okay. So now going kind of like an excursion here. I guess that was one good thing about H3 is that it did block out bishop G4. So now the bishop is getting harassed here. Also, knight c6 might be another type of move to play. So should black, no, this doesn't work. Does not work. Oh, but he tries it anyway. Okay, well, thought that move didn't work. Let's find out. It's a free pawn. Does LJJ like free pawns here? All right, well, while that this battle rages on, let's take a look at this. Okay, D5, extremely early. Opening up this diagonal for the bishop. Does gain space, but like I said, oh, look at that in C5. Yeah, okay. So pawns on, so when a file is half open, so the file is half open here for white. There is no white pawn on the file, but there is one black pawn. So the file is not open, it's considered half open. So whenever you have a pawn that is on a half open file, generally speaking, the pawn that's defending this guy should remain here. That's his goal in life, is to guard the pawn that's on the half open file. So this way you can get your pieces out. If you decide to move the guard at some point, which is what happened here, that means that this pawn on the half open file is now basically considered a backward pawn. And when white castles here, everything's being aimed at the backward pawn. And the move you would love to play is C7. You'd like to play C7 here to re-guard this pawn. So a very important strategy when your opponent is hitting a pawn on one of your on a half open file for themselves. Make sure that the pawn that's being attacked is defended, especially by a pawn. I mean, as long as possible. So here comes the, well, wait a minute. So there's two defenders, there's two attackers, 2 versus 2. That's some bad math there. 2 doesn't beat 2. As a matter of fact, it actually ends up losing. So here, okay. Threatening mate, by the way, and taking. So the idea is mate. So E5 going for the fork, but it was rebuffed. Okay, so yeah, so it's, the idea is if you can take the bishop, if you take the bishop, then rook d1 is checkmate. So here, since it's not being followed, so now the bishop should just retreating in, maybe even to here. Something like that. Okay, so while that's going on, let's go back to this game. The pawn was accepted, and then he just simply went back again, and we have a 1 versus 3 pawn storm. Now he develops and double attacks. A3 is met by bishop takes, winning yet another pawn. Suddenly, this is looking extremely good for white. Up a pawn, better space, better development. One move from completing development by moving the H rook. Probably winning a second pawn here. In fact, I would say definitely winning a second pawn here. And he got away with H3 too. Lucky him. Very nice. Okay, well, let's go over here. So bishop c4 was played, and then rook d1 was played. Okay, so let's go to this game. So here, of course, is trading down. Is pretty good. Black could probably also play b5 and gain more space. Yep, that's reasonable. Yeah, go ahead and trade rooks. No big deal. Can trade bishops. You can even play h6 and force this guy to trade. You can trade here too. Yep. You could trade knights. Just h6 forces a capture here because if he backs up, then g5 wins another piece. So, well, he goes to trade pawns, but yeah, it's usually when you have a winning position, it's much easier to trade off big pieces. Or, I mean, it makes the win easier if you could trade off big pieces. That's what I'm trying to say. Trading off pawns doesn't make the win easier in many cases. In fact, trading pawns oftentimes gives the opponent drawing chances. More pawns that leave the board, the less chances you have of making new queens. So you want to keep a lot of pawns. So this way, when you have your extra material, it'll be much easier to promote. If you trade all the pawns, then that makes it less. Okay, so he does finally trade off a knight. This is good. You can take it with a rook. You might be able to take with a pawn too if you want to scare him with a scare him with a passed pawn. Knight d5 looks good. Hitting here and here and here. Good. Making several threats. Knight e3, knight c3, knight b4, bishop c3. All these are threats. Finishing off the game in style. So what's happening there? So LJJ looks like he has an endgame with 2 extra pawns and a totally safe king. And 3 passers. That's pretty good too. So yeah, we can win a pawn with check. We can break him up with knight e3 and take. He goes for this. This is simple and good. So then maybe a5, a4, a3. Maybe go for a king walk. A5. So this is much quicker. If he can break it open with a3, that gives him 2 passers and a whole host of helpers. That should be pretty easy. This is a skewer, or I mean a fork. Rook here. Looks pretty good. Bishop takes b2 is an interesting combination. Bishop takes b2, king takes check, followed by take. Wins another pawn and puts the rook on a crushing position. This is interesting. So attacking and defending. Yeah, this would be great if he had other pieces, but he doesn't. Bishop h6 might be a quick mate, unless he plays f4. So he goes for his original idea. Rook d3. or I mean, knight f4, hitting rook d3. That's adequate. So he's up a whole rook here. So he has a variety of ways to try to finish this off. Might have had knight c7 there. Aha. Well, rook takes b2 isn't a threat, though. Maybe bishop g7 is now a big threat with a real skewer. So he sticks with his idea there. Yeah, bishop g7 was a nice, probably a nice way to finish it off. Also, knight d3 exchanged off the knight. But he sticks with his guns here. This was his idea. Let's stick with the idea. So here comes two passers, lots of help. King is badly placed. This is probably a good move. Check followed by go pawn go is probably a good move. Lots of choices. Let's see what's going on the small board here. So white still has the two extra pawns and has a lot of good pieces. Well placed. Yep. Okay, looking pretty good. So he goes to the check. Yeah. This is threatening bishop g7, and now there might be some mating ideas. b3 and rook a1. Can do this first. Force some pieces off the board. Make it a little easier for you to win. Nope, doesn't make it easier. c3. Not threatening anything. So this threatens the rook. Well, here attacks something. It's always important to pick up tempi like that and be able to take an attacked piece, turn it around, attack something else, and make your opponent defend, which will almost always give you at least one free move, sometimes more. So since it wasn't attacked, oh, this is the point. Still not trying to get rid of this bishop, though. That would be really nice. Oh, okay, it goes in for something else. All right, well, take the check. Move the knight away somewhere. Why? No, doesn't take the bit. Uh-oh. Okay, so check can happen, and then you can save the knight. Okay, well, then don't save the knight. Just let the knight go. Looks like black is finding some counterplay here. In LJJ versus Slow Riot. Getting down to time pressure situation. Yeah, well, this is what happens when technique gets a little squiffy. When you're up in material, it's always a good idea to trade, especially if you're up more than say a bishop or a knight. If you're up 3 or 4 or 5 points, just trade the big pieces. It makes it so much easier to win. And you don't have to go through these awkward contortions and different things you have to defend against and accidentally giving away pieces. The more pieces you trade, the less chances you have of blundering a piece. That's, I think, an important rule. All right, we'll assume that Smatov wins with the extra extra rook there. Okay, so here LJJ is still up 2 pawns. Slow Riot's fighting though, threatening mate. Whoops, threatening mate. Probably get off one of the rooks too. That would be some. Yeah, see, now that's good technique. Trade those guys off. They can even play knight d5 or something. There you go. Now that you're not being attacked, now you can actually have a more free-flowing attack, more or at least initiative. Okay, hitting the rook. Just probably want to go to a light square, something like c8. Or you could maybe go to d6. D6 might have been a good square too, even though it was a dark square, but the knight was guarding here and here. Now black might have rook d7 with more counterplay. Rook d7, rook c5. Kind of awkward. Probably can hold this. And then as soon as you can get your king into the game, then there's a lot less to worry about. Everything's defended. So probably rook c5 here. Pressure's on. That allows this. And now it's serious counterplay. Once again. Yep, he finds it. Uh-oh. Now you have to win the game all over again. King can't get out. Oh, well, maybe. Maybe. Yeah, it just gets greedy here. Good move. I like this. Just hold on to this guy. Okay, so he holds on to him, but this is going to be, yeah. Now, okay, but now all of a sudden these pawns are a lot weaker than before. Yeah, I don't know if you should have allowed that. This guy's going to play go pawn go. No. Give me the bishop. Give me the rook. Oh, no, he gave him the rook. Oh, but he didn't. Oh, surprise. Okay, but this, this is a fancy combination, but I think so. It's three passed pawns versus 3 passed pawns, but it's knight versus bishop, and the bishop is notoriously is really, really good at not only stopping the opponent's passed pawns, but helping out their own. And the knight does not have this power because the knight is too slow for all this. So this is a Tsuji move. Uh-oh, all these squares are guarded. And this is already blocked. So go, Harry. Oh, no. Look at that. Yeah. And it looks like black wins. So, yeah, that was a fancy looking combination, but it stepped right into a bad ending. So, yeah, instead of just going for that fancy looking thing, just moving the rook out of the way. This is, yeah, just king f2 or this. Although now the knight can get over here. I don't know if Slow Riot wanted that. Oh, maybe it's trapped here. G6, G5. G5 allows him out. G6, however, trapped him. And then you could play king G3. That would have picked up the knight. That's funny. Now okay, so now the knight is still alive. This is kind of a weird move too. Or wait a minute, what was the last? Okay, so this was attacking the bishop. So yeah, H4, yeah, that wouldn't have worked. So okay, bishop F4, good move. Okay, wow, interesting battle there. All right, so this is center counter from Odeby, which he's a French guy, but not today. The winner of this might actually win the tournament. Oh, maybe there's enough time to get a couple games in. We'll see. All right, so this is this position here has been caused. In fact, after this is the main move, and this exact move order, I guess, has been causing some center counter players some problems. And of course, this is the old main line, and now here it's the move H3, and evidently this is not a good position for black anymore. No, this is a little, I mean, this is a move, but H3 has the point that if the bishop backs up, that you could play G4 followed by knight E5, which gains a lot of really excellent space. And if the bishop takes on F3, then the queen captures, and that gives the bishop pair for at no cost, and white still has a really good space advantage. Even this is probably still just an edge for white. Really good development, good space. Surprised Odeby's playing this. So this is like maybe a new secret weapon for him. That's cool. Oh, we've got Slow Riot versus Siberian Comfort, and it's another looks like a Philidor defense with an early E takes D4 and a kingside fianchetto. What do they call that? The Larson variation. So I guess we got a Larson variation Philidor. How interesting. Seems all right. Okay, so black actually is playing, all Scandi center counter moves. At some point you have to back up. Maybe back up to B6 this time. Now there's a bishop here. This bishop can be developed and, castle wherever safest. Yeah, maybe this is just a position. A3. So this way, if black has some idea of castling queen side, we could remind them that he also has a queen side attack. Also, this takes away bishop B4. So this is probably a reasonable move. Black should probably just continue developing. Let's get on with it. Maybe even knight d5. He runs away. Runs away without being kicked first. How interesting. Well, let's see if I can make use of this extra tempo. Here, let's go to this game. This looks like almost a fighting game here. So bishop to e2, take. So this is how we got this. All right. All right, so goes for an f5 attack. Now, of course, f5 always gives away e5 in such situations. So you have to bank on the fact that allowing black to play knight e5 is not going to help their position. So maybe the threat is bishop g5. This does seem rather early, though. White isn't really threatening anything directly. Probably could have built up behind this, something like rook to d1 maybe first. Maybe lifting the rook first. Maybe just guarding the e pawn a few times. Maybe like trying to get like a g4, g5 or something. You could probably have built up behind that. So he charges, and then okay. So and then he was given a square. Let's use it. Why not? Let's see your threat. Maybe bishop g5. Very hard dealing with this knight here. And then immediately tries to go after this. Seems logical. Oh, okay. Right idea. Trying to attack two sensitive spots, but queen takes knight, unfortunately, is the end of that. So, right idea, wrong execution. And now white is just clearly winning here. Can build up the attack. Let's see how the attack. I predict that this one's going to be a mating attack. There's just too many pieces aimed towards the king here. Knight to g4, going after the bishop. Bishop d4 looks simple. Maybe it doesn't look simple. Bishop g5. Bishop d4, I thought, especially since, again, white is up 3 points, let's try to get some of the pieces off the board and give ourselves an easier position. This, I mean, it does attack the queen. That's true. But this bishop wasn't forced to trade itself for the other bishop. So that means that the bishop is still alive. And so therefore it's a threat. It's possibly creating problems in the future. Our goal here when we have a winning position is to eliminate problems. Give ourselves an easy win. Looks like black won a pawn there in Smatov versus Odabi. So let's take a look on how that happened. Let's back it up. So let's see. So right, castles, knight b10, bishop f4, e6, a3, backs up at h3. He swaps, and then Smatov gives away a pawn. So hopefully this is a meaningful pawn sacrifice. So it was accepted. And then, okay, so some sort of general assault on the queen side. So he's got a pair of bishops and some potentially like really good rooks here in a couple of moves, although he does have to watch out for this. I guess that's compensation for the pawn. He's going to defend his pawns tactically. So queen d7, rook d1. Funny, rook d1 still did nothing about the bishop, still not guarding e3. This knight here on g4 can, I mean, only makes a threat here. So I would have thought that rook a e1 taking that away. He finds bishop c1. Okay, so this holds on to e3, but undevelops the bishop. But this is okay. He's up a piece. Now fg is a big threat since this pawn's pinned. Looks pretty good. So he does find this tactical move d4. And then he can do something about the defense of the b pawn next. I thought his idea was to play e4, not d4. So now what, queen c7? Rook b8, okay. Kind of a passive rook move. Maybe b5 is a threat. So maybe this isn't so bad. So it looks like that white does not have compensation for this pawn. So black is clearly better now. It's got a pass pawn. It's already anchored. So slowing down b5. Still kind of like queen c7. At least connect the rooks. All right, well, this is kind of slow action here. So let's go to the big attack here. Oh, wow, white is one huge material. How did that happen? All right, so, right, h6. Bishop went back to c1, a6. So then give me the knight. Black said, no, give me your queen. White said, no, let's trade. And then takes with the d pawn. Well, of course, you had to take with the bishop. However, that allowed bishop h6. But this, of course, allows rook takes queen. And the rest of this is murderous. Let's just see how slow right finishes this off. Probably queen d6. Queen d6 followed by like f6 or fg. Probably fg. There, yeah. Good move. And then fg. And that should be that. If bishop f8, then queen takes e5. Oh, queen d5, huh? Okay, yeah, it hits f7. That's fine. That works too. In fact, that probably works better. Good move. So this is check, but you can just go out of check. So thread here, thread here, thread here on f7. Thread here even, so 4 threads. Two threats is usually sufficient. If your opponent can't block one, it can block one but not the other. 4 threats is resignable. That's the biggest one, and then we have mate. Simple and good. Very efficient. All right, let's see what's happening here. Right, so O to B got his pawns rolling. Got a knight to B3. And again, just exchange. He's one pawn up, so you should just exchange off. And especially the only thing that White's got going for him is the bishop pair. I mean, at least get rid of him. Also, the knight is trapped, so let's do something with the knight. So just taking. In fact, I wonder what he's thinking about. D3. So this overextends the pawn, though. Now it's not defended anymore. I don't know if I like this. Queen to E3, knight takes, rook takes. What, does he have E4? Like barely. Maybe he does. Queen E4. Ha, which incidentally stops pawn E4. Ah, very good move by Smatov. So now if knight takes D2, rook takes D2, and D3 can't be held. So the D3 pawn is overextended. That was a really good extra pawn. Now it's going to be dead meat. So he's probably got to do something tricky here. Knight D4 maybe. Yeah, suddenly the B8 rook looks miserable. The D3 pawn is hopeless. The F6 bishop is a pawn with a hat. Bishop on G4 is irritating. All right, so this makes the knight interesting, but the D3 pawn is gone, and now material is equal again. And that has to favor the two bishops. Also, White has a pawn majority on the queen side that can't be overlooked. What? He doesn't take the pawn. Uh-oh. This feels wrong. Let's see. Oh, there is a point to this. Look at this, 92. So now the light square bishop is the one that has to choose. So Odeby might have got the better of that deal there. That light square bishop was much more irritating than the D2 bishop. Now the B8 rook can actually now go to C8 and activate himself, whereas the bishop was holding on to that square. Unless Smatov does not take this knight. Maybe that's the idea. Play like king F1 or something. Well, no, then knight F4. Yeah, no, then knight F4. Well, maybe. Knight F4, G3. Maybe this knight's starting to do some dancing here. Some pirouettes. Knight f4, pawn g3. Yeah, maybe he's just spinning around uncontrollably now. King h1, a remarkably calm move. He really wants to take on d3 with a rook, I guess. And I think he's going to get his way. Yeah, this looks good. Let's see, g3, pawn h5. Is that something? Bishop f5. g6. I don't know. This is starting to, I mean, after g, yeah, no, this is a really strong move. And now if he just retreats, then he gets his dream of rook takes d3. And white probably has a big advantage there. So that's why maybe is h5 the only try here? This is not looking super wonderful anymore. h5. Well, okay. Well, Smadov gets his dream. And now his rooks are perfectly coordinated. As soon as the dark bishop moves, then his rooks will be protected each other and doubled. And the rook is guarding a3 too. It's like a dream position suddenly for white. Bishop e3 next. Wow, yeah, no, this is suddenly really, really good for white. Rook d7's maybe a little irritating. Yep. Follow this up with bishop to e3. I kind of like bishop e3 first because it had kind of a trickier threat of bishop c5, which is kind of funny. But this, I guess, wins another pawn, or wins a pawn for Smadov. Queen f8, rook takes b7, wins a pawn. Could probably even play bishop e3 anyway. Bishop e3 was probably more of an important move because this uncovered the rook on the d file. It gave the bishop a job, and white was gonna win a pawn anyway. So you might as well have thrown in a really good developing move and dominated the d file. This one, black can actually take once and then go rook to d8. Although that might not make any difference either. The bishop on g4 guards the rook on d1, so there really is no pin. So this just looks like good technique here once again by Smadov. Very impressive. And he's in the 1200s. So congratulations to him as well for that. Might be the first time he's over 1200. Well, that's what happens when your technique improves. Your rating goes up. I think direct correlation between those two things. You get winning positions and you finish people off, your rating goes higher. Here, I would play queen to e4 and prevent his e-pawn from moving. Don't let black play e4 and free up his entire position. Free up his dark bishop, give his knight on g6 a square on e5, improve the rook. Not necessary. Just play queen e4. Blockade. And then put your bishop on e3, and that should be good technique. And he finds it. Congratulations. That's extremely good. And now black's all tied up and he's down a pawn, and white's got a passer on c4. He's got two Bs. He's got the only open file. Still play bishop to e3. The rook on d1's protected. Good. Everything's perfect here. You even have h4, h5 if you want to gain more kingside space. Might even have h4, h5, h6. You can improve your king at will if you want. King to g2, king h2, whatever is better. All kinds of different ideas here. Queen a8. Queen a8 looks real. Oh no, queen a8, knight f8. Ah, but then bishop c5. Actually, this one might be first. But now he's got rook e8. So maybe queen a8 first was more devastating. And then knight f8, and then bishop c5, and then you've got pins and skewers and double attacks and mating attacks and all kinds of nifty stuff. Here, there is no more queen a8. So the position is dominating, but it's good to find the knockout blow. I don't know. Rook there made it look like it made more sense. What is the bishop there doing? Just encouraging a pin. Yeah, this is a bit sloppy. He can just go back to where he came from, but that just gave away 2 or 3 moves. No reason for that. This doesn't threaten anything though. And now he's just in a pin. Yeah, this isn't very wonderful. All right, so he makes air. Okay, going for a runner. All right, so he has to give away his good bishop. He must take. Oh, maybe he doesn't have to take. These pieces are creeping forward. So take with rook. No, you're no. So this is boys and girls at home that are watching. This is why you'd never walk into pins. Oh, and then Odeby had rook takes rook check, and then bishop takes bishop. Did you guys all see that? Instead, so he took the bishop, and instead he had rook takes rook check. And when the king gets out of check, he could take the bishop and be 2 pieces ahead. This loses a rook. Oh no. Oh, Smatov had such an overwhelmingly crushing position. Wow. Oh well. So good defense on Odeby's part, I guess, or way to keep alert, I guess. All right, so we'll assume that Odeby wins this one. There's only 17 seconds left. It looks like Slow Right's going to win again. 3 wins. Any of these games that we didn't see? No, he found the mate there, and he had the end game against LJJ, and had that mate against Smatov. All right. So the winner was Slow Riot. Second place was Smatov. Very good. Performance rate of 1816 with the silver trophy, and Odeby with the orange trophy again. So some interesting, instructive games there. Right. Okay. Well, I don't think there's anything left unless we can see the end of this one here. Let's see. Let's take a look at some chess action before we go. Looks like Smatov is going to play on till mate. Rook b3 was more king trappy. Bishop here. No. Oh, now he plays this move. How interesting. You do have a king. Kings do stuff too. Okay, so we see some indecision here. Yeah. So again, for all your kids at home that are watching, whenever you have a winning end game, where you have an end game and you're on the winning side of it, one way to finish off your opponent as fast as possible is always make your king go to the strongest square that you could possibly go to. And if it takes a while to get to that square, then use the while to get to that square, because like I said, you have a winning end game already. So all you have to do is really get your king into a much better position. And that should finish off the opponent most efficiently. Just king here, king take. He doesn't use his king at all here. Well, forcing him to use his king, reminding him that he has a king. There you go. Bishop f4, make him back up. Okay. Use that king. King, 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 always. Nope, still doesn't do it. The other thing about not using your king is that, yeah, like sometimes you get in these awkward positions like this where you have to make a decision on a move, you know. Oh, is it stalemate? No. But using your king effectively and getting your king into a strong position usually makes your opponent run into zugzwang a lot faster. So queen f2 and then followed by queen h2 is checkmate if they can find it. Or will a stalemate happen? Nope, he finds it. All right. So that would finish it off. And let's see, that would have put him in tied for second with Smatov there. Right. Okay, well, we'll end it with that. Actually, we will not end it with that. Let's actually go back a couple of weeks and highlight the two games that I didn't do a video for. One of them was this one here. The game between, let's see, it was Collie Dog versus Odeby. And Collie Dog is playing white. It was a French defense with a d3 where white was intending to play knight bd2, g3, bishop g2, and castle with the king's Indian attack, but played it in the wrong move order. With knight f3 first. Usually, if you're going to play e4 and go for a king's Indian attack against the French defense, then it's better to play d3 first. The reason for this is that when black plays the French defense move, we do not have to play knight to f3. We can play knight to d2. And the purpose of this move is that if black decides to capture, there is no queen trade when the knight is in the way. And this will allow you to develop your pieces, but without trading queens. So Collie Dog was trying to get a king's Indian attack, but accidentally played knight f3 first, so that when d5 happened, all of a sudden we have to make some sort of decision with the pawn. So he decides to play like this to try to set up a king's Indian attack. But however, in this position, black can actually capture once and then trade queens in such a way that you have to take with the king. However, after this, Collie Dog decides to gambit. So he does not take the pawn back and trade queens. He goes for knight e5, which looks really risky. This makes no threat at all, and black can remain a pawn ahead. So like here, you can just simply capture and just keep the extra pawn. However, Odeby is nice and gives the pawn back, and quickly tries to develop. Knight to g4, and also h3 was a very strange move. In this position, I guess the intention with h3 was to put the knight on g4, but then g4 was already guarded. So if white really wanted to play knight g4, I mean, they could have just like developed a piece first and then played here when needed. So this very strangely timed h3 move, knight to g4. This lost a pawn, check here, which is interesting because now there's all of these different things that are under attack. But here's a calm exchange was offered. This bishop attack was met by f3, which just totally opened all the dark squares, and black utilized this here, and queen d4. So suddenly black is up a pawn with a nice looking initiative, queen to e2, knight to d7, c3. So in this position with the extra pawn, black could have considered exchanging twice on f2 and go into an end game and keep the extra pawn. And this is actually what happened. Castles, rook d8. So bringing the pieces into play. Bishop g5. So white is down a pawn and starts some business on the king's side. And unfortunately, after capture, white was given just enough tempo to start some stuff on the g file. g4, this move, not really threatening anything. So white says, okay, fine, rook g1. This move, giving white the f5 square, but it also gives him this turn. And then bishop c6, also a move that did absolutely nothing. So then white got in g5. And unfortunately here, black actually has to play some sort of move that closes the g file. You don't want the g file open. Instead, Odeby took twice, took twice, which actually ends up losing to rook takes g5, king h8, rook h1 checkmate. So Collie Dog wins this game, and with that one win, actually won the tournament. The other tournament was this one where only one game was played between Slow Riot and LJJ, and white timed out. So we'll look at it from the winner's point of view. So this was a Najdorf once again, the bishop e3 variation. This time around, we had f3. The game today, we saw they had f4. LJJ's also tried a4 in this position. This is a little bit more standard. G4, G5, f4. So trying to win the knight here on f4. However, this capture hits a bishop on e3. So this pawn was sacrificed. And in fact, that pawn was sacrificed, but the knight was being attacked here. So here we get this wild position in where white has won a piece and has some stuff aiming towards the king, but white's king is also a bit drafty. So there's a little bit problem there. So bishop to h6 actually looks like it guards against this. And LJJ jumps in. So this looks like it just wins at once. White's up a piece. I mean, he's got all this stuff heading this way. But at this moment, Slow Riot finds queen h4 check. And this is a really irritating move because if king here or here, knight e3 picks up the queen. Although in some cases, I thought it might have been okay to sack the queen because there's such a huge attack on the G line that you could probably even give away your queen. LJJ does not give away the queen. And after taking the bishop with check, which is a nice move to have to play, king to d3, Slow Riot tries to pick up a pawn with check. So this makes the king go out into outer space. And this king almost survives this meteor shower here in front of this king. So f3 distracts the queen away from all of this. So queen g3 setting up bishop h6. So bishop g4 trying to block that. And here it seems like that white should just collect the bishop. But instead, he tries to collect this bishop, but this gives black some extra opportunities here, including king to h8, which the idea is to unpin the bishop and possibly go for a queen to e5. Unfortunately, it does eventually allow white to actually collect the rook as well, but he did not collect the rook. He collected the bishop, but after queen to e5, black decides to resume the attack on the king. King to e3, which wins this guy with check. And here, I guess if the king went to f2, that white is actually winning the game, just simply hiding out on this side of the board. Instead, LJJ bravely decided to go out into space here on f4, but rook to g8 was a really annoying move. And after bishop to g7, this looks good, except after take, this is a queen down here. So after capture, 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 we go into this end game where black has got 2 extra pawns, and white's pawns are all they're all splitties. So every one of them is isolated. Then we have this skirmish in the middle of the board. Take here. And in this position, white actually ran out of time, even though the game looks like it still could go on here. Let's see. It was white to move in this position. So white, of course, could take on f7. Well, can't. Well, let's see. Take f7. Rook takes. Rook check. So that's probably not bad. So it's still basically a fight, but only in this position, white ran out of time. So slow right wins the game and wins the tournament with a 1-game victory there. Okay, so that should catch us up for the Thursday night events. We will be back on the 18th at 7 o'clock. This has been Coach Matt for the Seattle Chess School. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next one.